And recording has started. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope you all are doing super duper well. For those who know me, good to go. Like, for those who don't know me, I'm Maz. I'm currently a computer science freshman at LUMS. I got a top in Pakistan distinction in computer science, and we are officially starting off with a past paper session here for the May June 2026 session. Inshallah, this 1.5 month crash course, past paper crash course, will be enough to take you from that B or C level to maybe an A star or a distinction level. So, first and foremost thing, get it into your minds. We are preparing for that distinction. After this point, I don't want anyone to think that I'm focusing for an A star, I'm aiming for an A star. We are aiming for a distinction. And if anybody of you has that question in their mind that, sir, will we be solving IGCSE papers or O level papers? Let me tell you that computer science is one of those unique Cambridge subjects where you have the same exam content for IGCSE and also for O level. So there is no apparently difference in between them. So starting off, I wanted to first of all share a few things regarding the plan which we will be following for our past paper session. First and foremost thing, we will be solving both paper number ones and paper number two in this 1.5 month time frame. We will ensure that we do as many questions, as many papers as possible. The structured or perhaps the schedule is going to be that we will be having a 1.5 hour class every day from 10 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. inshallah, and it's going to be from Monday to Friday. And also, because I have Saturday as a spare day, we can have extra class on Saturday if, for instance, I feel like that a specific concept needs to be covered in more detail, or maybe there was some question which wasn't being able to be completed in the last class. We might have an extra class on Saturday. So don't worry, I'm there to support you throughout the next whole month. What I want from you all is dedication and consistency. You all are required to attend all the lectures, all the classes live, and alongside that, what I would recommend is that before joining the session, every day I will be sharing what exam paper we will be solving. So it's better if you try giving it your best to see where you stand and whether you are improving or not. Apart from that, the session's main focus will be on paper number two, by which I mean to say that we will be, inshallah ta'ala, focusing upon how to solve those. Umar, I would appreciate agar aap na karo. Let me even turn off this. How do you do that? Just give me a minute. Mm, sharing, remove toolbar. Okay, my bad. Let kar diya. How do you do it? I've been doing it even for my own self पहले से ही, but close all. Guys, ये गलत बात है. I'm gonna turn on the chat. Just a minute. Give me a minute. How do you turn this off? Clear. Just me a minute. No one should be allowed to do that. Just give me a minute, guys. We have some technical difficulties, unfortunately, but we will solve them. Just give me a minute. Let me turn this all annotation thingy off. Chat open करता हूँ. Just give me a minute. Guys, just a second. How do you even do this? How to turn off drawings on Zoom? Disable annotation. Okay, disable annotation for this. Okay, done. I hope you guys can not do any of that anymore. Please, class ko disturb na karo. But let's start off, guys. Sorry for the small inconvenience. It happens. Definitely, we all learn. But never mind. Let's start off officially with the course content. We have 88 kiddos in the class. Let's start off. So, I was sort of talking about how our main focus for this session will be mostly regarding how to solve those complex questions. We will be solving those difficult 15 markers. We will be solving those complex pseudocode questions. We will be solving all those advanced sort of flow chart, trace table, and those questions. And our focus throughout this class will be to ensure that you understand the logic behind it. Now, one important point here to note is that we expect every one of you to know the concept beforehand. We won't be sort of learning the concept all the way from the start. However, we do ensure that we will make sure that you understand the logic the right way. So Let's start off with this paper, which is basically the specimen paper number B for your computer science paper number 2 for the examination from 2023. We have 1 hour 45 minutes for this paper. So how do you need to break down this paper timing? First and foremost, Walaikum Assalam Huzaifa, you need to break down this 1 hour 45 minutes into two parts, the 45-minute section and the 1 hour section. Now, generally on the paper, it's being written as that you need to have क्या कहते हैं you need to keep like 1 hour for 30 minutes maybe for that. Just give me a minute, let me turn off these emojis too so आप लोग उससे भी disturb ना हो क्योंकि आप लोग को बड़े मसले हैं. So usually on the exam paper, it's written that you need to spend at least 30 minutes for your 15 marker. However, what I would recommend is that you keep at least 1 hour for that. If you don't, in that case, there is a great possibility that you sort of miss upon important things, which I don't want. So yeah, so done and done. अब आप लोग नहीं कर सकते. Emojis have been turned off, don't worry. So keep 1 hour for the 15 marker, which is what we will be also trying our best, and alongside that keep 45 minutes for the first 60 mark question. Say so your aim while solving a 15 while solving a paper number 2 should be at least obtaining 60 plus marks. So throughout these lectures, our main focus will be not upon only obtaining 60 plus, but scoring a perfect 75, and that is what I would recommend to every one of you. If you aim for a 75, God forbids the exam is difficult or something goes wrong, you will be still in that 60 plus range. But if you're only preparing for 60, bro, if something goes off, you might slack off to 40s. So we don't want that. So for that reason, first and foremost thing, be very, very attentive because we will ensure that you understand the logic in great detail. So now let's start off with the very first question of this exam paper. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Question number 1 says that a range check is used to check that a value input is above 10 and below 20. Okay. And now it says that tick one box to show which value would be accepted. Now this is a pretty easy question because it expects me to tell a suitable value between 10 and 20. It's similar to saying that, okay, I'm not going to give you extra homework if you score between 80 and 90. So what's the range between which you won't be getting extra homework? Anything between 80 to 90. But up here, they clearly mention above 10 and below 20. For that reason, neither 10 will be the correct answer nor 20. Hence, if I look up at the options, it's pretty evident that the correct answer up here is B. Good to go. We get 1 mark up here. Going on to question number 2. The question number 2 says that there are basically 4 programming concepts and there are 4 relevant descriptions shown for them. Now we need to basically draw one line to connect each programming concept to its appropriate description. Now the thing is, a lot of students in such questions sort of try to rush up. What I would recommend everybody is that आप लोग rush ना करना. Do ensure that you are very, very solving it slowly. Walaikum Tosif, I hope you're doing well. Don't worry, sab ho jayega, don't worry. Say, so how do we solve such questions? First and foremost thing, you go and take the first option and compare it with all the relevant descriptions. For instance, if I see library routine, what's a library routine? So while learning the concept, you would have definitely studied something known as random function, diff function, substring, and all that stuff. And we studied that they are basically pre-built functions. Pre-built functions. These pre-built functions are what we call as library routines. So these are those specific sort of functions which can be used whenever I want. So like I never sort of write code for how a substring works, right? I never write code for how does length function works. We sort of just write the keyword length and boom, it gives us the value. So that specific sort of function, which is always immediately available for our use, that is known as a library routine. So in this case, if I have to review it against the descriptions, I see that this specific point, that a standard subroutine that is available for immediate use, it perfectly matches my description of what a library routine is. So for that reason, I'm just going to make a line from library routine all the way to a standard subroutine which is available for immediate use. Remember, whenever there is a function which I can use anywhere, whenever I want, for whatever reason, that function will always be coming under library routine. So library routine is the pre-built function which I can use whenever I want. Going to the point number 2, what is a structure diagram? A structure diagram is one of the 3 ways to represent your code. We saw we can represent it using pseudocode, flowchart, and the third way is structure diagram. Where if you remember in chapter number 7, we studied something like breaking a problem into smaller modules, right? Where you can divide that problem into smaller parts. just the way I'm denoting up here. This model, which we sort of just created in front of you, this is what we call as a structure diagram. So if I just go and read the descriptions, it can be clearly seen that if I have to compare it with this, no, this does not say that. It's sort of giving me an overview of what's happening. If I read this, a subroutine that can be used in an assignment statement, nah, it does not tell me that. It's giving me some overview. A structure diagram always gives me an overview, right? That, okay, this thing happens, then, okay, this thing happens, and then this could happen beneath this could happen after that, and blah, blah, blah stuff. So the main characteristic of a structure diagram is that it always provides you a top-down view. Top-down view. And that top-down view always gives us an overview. So when you hear the word structure diagram, you should always be looking for something like an overview of a program or subroutine. So the answer for the second statement goes this. Then the third point comes up as procedure and function. We're going to take the question once we end the specific question, say easy senior. Now the third question says that we have procedure and functions. So if I go and read the descriptions only, the first description says that a subroutine that may not return a value. To be very honest, we have studied this in class, that the major difference between our procedures and function is that functions generally return a value, whereas procedure, they do not return a value. So by just reading a description, it's pretty much very evident that the answer to this needs to be this. But now a lot of you would have this one point in their mind that said, okay, one option left, the description is this, which means that apparently the answer is this. But if I go and read the description, does this description match that of a function? A subroutine that can be used in an assignment statement. Okay. Now, a lot of students who have not studied the concept in great detail, to be honest, they will get stuck at this point. They will be thinking, okay, sir, function, I know a function is a subroutine which returns a value, but I don't see anything like returning a value at this point. Does this mean I'm cooked? No. If you remember back then when we were studying the topic of functions, we said one thing, that functions can never be called. We always call a procedure, right? But if we want to make use of a function, the function will always be assigning a value to something. For instance, if there is a function which calculates the square of a number, square of some value like square 2 would give me the answer of 4, we always said that, okay, it's going to return the value 4, but this 4 needs to be stored somewhere. So where do I store that? We store it usually in a variable. So whenever I want to make use of a function, we use it somehow like this. If I have a variable with the name of answer, we say answer and assign the value of square 2 to it. Square 2 to it, which sort of explains that, okay, I did make use of a subroutine, which is this, and it has also been used alongside an assignment operator. Now, before everybody comes up with this question that, sir, our teacher told us that you need to make use of equals to assign value, so like rather than making use of an arrow, why didn't you make use of an equals to sign? Let me tell you that according to the actual Cambridge pseudo guide, according to the Cambridge official notice, according to the Cambridge official latest marking schemes, whenever you want to assign some value, whenever you want to assign value, you make use of this arrow, and this arrow has been called as an assignment operator. Now the point here to note is that because pseudocode has multiple sort of syntax, you won't be losing marks if you make use of an equal to sign. Say it's not like aapne equals to use kiya, so for that reason you will be losing marks. But if you make use of an assignment operator, it's better. Why? Because if an examiner asks for a specific thingy, it's better to make use of that. So if using this example, it could be pretty much very evident that I can make use of a function alongside an assignment operator this way. So you have a variable, you assign that value, and to what value is being assigned to it? It's some sort of a value that a function returns to me, like square value. That is how you make use of a function that is assigning value to it. I hope this is pretty much clear. If there are any questions, आप मुझे बता सकते हो. You can send it to me right now in the chat box. Otherwise, we can move on. Say it. All right. पूछते जाओ if there are any questions. In-get library routine has difference from अच्छा library routines and functions they are sort of the same thing but function आप खुद बनाते हो, you yourself write the code for it. Library routine is something which has been written beforehand, say which you just make use of, you don't write the code for it. What's a subroutine? Subroutine is sort of a different or a second name given to a specific set of code which you can use again and again. So when we created a procedure and a function, the main task which it does is that it basically we create a specific procedure or a function, we say that it's going to conduct these three statements, and every time we call a procedure or make use of a function, it again and again returns those same value again and again. So that's code being copied again and again. That is what we call as a subroutine. So you assign a process to a function. This value which is being assigned to a function, that is known as a parameter. So we don't assign a process, we perhaps assign a parameter to a function which basically gives us a value, and that value is basically returned and stored in a variable with the name of like answer in this case. Okay. An example of library routine could be anything like length function, anything like substring and blah blah blah. Okay. Clear, clear, clear. Okay. Um, Okay, let's move on. Okay, so what is the sign of equals to in this program? Like I think it is acha. So generally, that's a good question. That if you cannot make use of equals to for assigning, what is equals to generally used for? So this equals to in programming in pseudocode is used for comparison. We're gonna see inshallah in today's class how we make it for the use of comparison. But if I want to compare two values, I'm gonna be making use of this equals to. So I hope this question is pretty much clear. If there are some questions which are very basic, which sort of asks me regarding the very conceptual basic point of view, I would recommend that you can go on to my YouTube channel and you can watch my recording on them, because I've been discussed all of them in great detail regarding what's library routine, what's a function, and what's a procedure. You can view them later on. Let's move on to the next question, which now says that a program is checking if the weight of a baby is at least 2 kilograms. Okay, pretty much clear. Now it says that give with reason two different values of test data that could be used for the baby's weight, and each reason must be different. So I need to specify two different values. They should be of different error or data types. Okay, as now you always give the value from the same data type, you need to give it from two different data types, and then you need to tell us why did you go with that specific data type. So when talking about test data, we have four different examples. The first one is normal, which is every acceptable data, every data that is sort of acceptable. The second one is your abnormal data. Abnormal data is that specific type of data which is tended to be rejected by the program because it is out of the range, right? The third one is basically the extreme data, which is the specific set of data which you tell to the program that okay, this is the most extreme sort of data which you can accept on the either boundaries. And then we have a unique sort of data which we call as a boundary data. And I know a lot of you are unable to understand the difference between extreme and boundary, but the difference majorly exists that boundary data checks that when you are at a specific boundary, one value, like for instance, if I say that a value is acceptable between 0 and 100, if I want to give some sort of boundary data, the boundary data is the data which will be at a specific boundary. So for instance, at 100 there will be one value which will be within the range. For instance, if 100 is the correct value and it is included, I can say 100 is the acceptable value, but 101 is the incorrect one. This is just to give you a quick recap so that if you are forgetting it, आप यहाँ से कर सकते हो. Otherwise, if you want to get the concept again, you can again open up my YouTube channel. I have discussed this in great detail. So now let's sort of look onto this one question. Sir, I can't see your screens. Someone else's screen. Oh, someone else's screen sharing. Okay, I was not even. Oh, just a minute. How is everybody? Someone else sharing? That's not even possible. Or can they? Mm, okay, my bad. I guess it's fixed now. Everybody fixed. Can anyone kindly confirm? Fix हो गया ना? Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. यार होता रहता है पता नहीं. The Zoom, I literally shifted to Zoom because there was this problem with the Google Meet, but no problem. So yeah, no problem. All right, so let me just give you a quick recap of what we are sort of discussing. So I'm just trying to give you a quick overview of that. When we have test datas, there could be four types. We have the normal data, which is sort of the data which is perfectly acceptable for our program. Our program is like, okay, perfect. Thank you for giving me the normal data. I'm fully capable of executing that data. Then the second one is abnormal data. Abnormal data is the one which my program, when it goes into my program, this the computer program is like, oh bro, I don't know what you're talking about. Bhai, ye kya ho raha hai? It's out of the acceptable range of my program. Then the third one is extreme data, which is sort of the data which you give, which is sort of the most acceptable extreme data. So, like if I say that a value needs to be between 0 and 100, then the most largest or the least value which can be accepted by the program, such as 100 and 0 in this case, that is what we call as an extreme data. And then we have something known as a boundary data, which is that specific set of values, two values at a specific boundary where one value is accepted and the other value is not accepted. So this is just to give a quick recap that while answering this question, you need to mention two values from these four. Now, guys, what's happening? Okay, we have a timer started up. Never mind. But now, if anybody wants to have a quick overview of what's happening, what they can do is they can open up my YouTube channel. The name for that is Code Catalyst, and it's Code Catalyst Computer Science. Just give me a minute, guys. I know आप लोगों ने पढ़ना नहीं है. आप लोगों ने पढ़ना नहीं है. So let me just done, done. Just give me a minute. ओके गाइस, आप लोग इंसान नहीं बनोगे. आप लोग इंसान नहीं बनोगे. Just give me a minute. Let me turn off everything. Yeah, everything has been disabled to be honest, but I don't know why. But apps, turn off. Whiteboard, turn off. Documents, turn off. All right, thank you very much, everybody, for helping with this. Because I'm new to this platform, Zoom. I don't know for what reason Google Meet was much better, but never mind. Let's move on. So, sort of, these are the four types of test data which you will be making use of while answering this question. Now, when I want to answer this question and I need to specify two values, so the best value for any question is that you either give a normal one and the second one, most probably abnormal, because extreme and boundary sort of can include some sort of exception cases. So it's better that in an example like this, it's better to go with normal and abnormal. So if I read this question, the value which will be accepted by the program is any integer value, because it says that you need to make a program that checks the weight of a baby. A weight of a baby in most cases will be an integer value. So if I have to give an integer value, it could be anything, like maybe I write 5. And now if I want to give a reason to it, the reason will be that this is a normal value. This is a normal value and is going to be accepted by the program and is going to be accepted. This is the exact way to give the reason, right? If you write something like this is the correct value, or this value will be sort of it's within the correct domain of that program, then you might be losing marks. The right way to answering this question is whenever you get the question upon a test data and it asks you to specify a specific reason, always talk about how that value is either normal, abnormal, extreme, and boundary, and whether that value is going to be accepted by the program or whether it's not going to be accepted by the program. Just like that, if I have to select any abnormal value in this case, abnormal value would be anything which the program will not understand. So for instance, if my program is expecting an integer, but I enter something like a string, now this string is going to be an invalid input. And if there is an invalid input, that is in most cases going to be rejected. So any data that needs to be rejected, we call that data to be abnormal. So for instance, if I choose my second value to be something like 6, 6 is something which my program will count is something like, okay, I do not understand what this SIX is because I can only understand integer values. So if there is some character or string passing through it, it goes out of the domain of it. So for instance, and for that reason, because it goes out of the domain, we say now that value is an abnormal value and it needs to be rejected. So you have to answer or give a reason to this. I'm going to say this is an abnormal value, and hence is going to be rejected and is going to be rejected. Boom, you get perfect 4 by 4 for writing these four statements. 1 mark for the value and 1 mark for the correct reason. If you don't write the correct reason, you will be losing upon marks. I don't want to make sure कि आप लोग marks lose करें. So the question says 2 kg. Yeah, the question does says 2 kg, but the program will be checking the weight of the baby. And weight in most cases will be an integer value. And if there is an integer value and you enter something like 6 or maybe 7, which is a string, in that case, you will be losing marks. So in that case, that value will not be counted correctly and you will be losing marks if you tend to mention that as a normal value. Sir, can we use extreme or boundary for this question? A good question. But to be honest, in this case, it's not recommended to go with extreme or boundary क्योंकि वो उस तरीके से नहीं हो सकता. Then how is 5 accepted? Oh, the question says that the weight of the baby is at least 2 kilograms, which basically means that anything above 2 is accepted, right? 3 is acceptable, 4 is acceptable, 5 is acceptable. And the data which we're entering into it, it needs to be greater than 2 and it needs to be an integer at the same time. If it's not that, to उस point पे it's going to be wrong. Won't weight be a real value? If you read the question, do you see anything 2.0? If there is anything like 2.0, even only in that case, you're going to assume that it's a real value. Because it's only 2, we're going to assume it to be an integer value. Now, this is sort of an easy question. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So for that reason, let's now just move on. Can we write -1? -1 could be mentioned as an incorrect value, but in this case, it's better to go with a value which is firstly acceptable. In this case, rather than 5, you can also mention something like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can at the same time also mention something like 6, 7 in terms of letters or maybe some signs, some other alphabets, which can then be counted as an abnormal value. I don't know, maybe there is some issue with Zoom. I will have to see it with it later on because I personally have been making use of Google Meet. I feel like वो better था, but let's see. Now let's move on to the next question. If you have any question, those who have raised their hands, आप लोग मुझे message कर दो, I can answer them. Aiza and Shafi, any questions? If you have, आप कर देना. Let me even see if आप लोगों ने भेजा हो. All right, I guess नहीं है. Okay, so let's move on to the next question now. So the next question says that you basically need to circle 2 actions that a program needs to take to store the data in a file. So when I want to store a data in a file, I need to follow a specific set of action. The first action, whenever you want to do anything with a file, is going to be opening the file. You always open the file, then you either read from the file or you write into the file. It depends upon the question. And then finally, you always close the file. Now, this question asks you that if you want to sort of store data in a file, what are the relevant actions you need to take? So to be honest, if I go, I can clearly see there is something like open. I can clearly see there is read. I can clearly see there is write. And at the same time, there is this option of close too. But now it only asks me to circle 2 actions. Now, what 2 actions do I need to circle in this case? For that, you need to go with those specific actions which are very, very, very relevant to storing data. So whenever you want to store data, it's really important that you open up a file. Because if you haven't opened up a file, how can you write or read data from it? If you haven't opened up a notebook, how can you write your answer in it or how can you read your notes from it, right? So the first answer or the first important action will always be opening the file. Whereas the second important action or the second important step will be reading or writing from it. In this case, because the question says that you need to store data in a file, the programmer needs to store data. So storing basically refers to the concept of writing data. So if I write something, this basically means that I'm storing some data in a specific file. And if I want to store data in a specific file, I will be making use of the function which is known as write. So you might have this one question, sir, I encircled close rather than write. Will I be getting marks or not? You won't be getting marks if you did open and close because there is a possibility. What if just a person opens a file and then he closes a file? Does this ensure that you have written something into the memory or into that file? No, right? Until or unless you don't make use of this write action, it's never going to ensure that the data has been stored in a specific file. For that reason, remember that whenever a program needs to store data, the most 2 fundamental sort of actions which you need to write, they are firstly, you're opening the file and secondly, writing the data into it. Likewise, if you continue to question number 4b, it now says that the program now has stopped unexpectedly with this message that file not found. Programmers literally hate this message when it comes up on the screen because you're like, okay, bro, computer to gaya, ab main kya karunga? So as a programmer, you will always try to read data from file, but also ensure that such errors never occur. So this question asks you that outline the actions that the programmer needs to take to prevent this error from occurring. So as a programmer, how can I ensure that this file or this error never occurs? To be honest, if I just think the action for this is pretty easy, I would be like, okay, this error is only going to occur if this file does not exist, if there is no file existing beforehand. This means that if I implement a model where I check whether the file exists or not beforehand, then it can solve the problem. So what I can do is I can sort of check whether the file exists. If it does, well and good. If it does not, I can output an error that, okay, bro, this file does not exist. So even before you going to open a file or you going to that stage of writing something into it, you can sort of beforehand see that if a file does not exist, you can clearly mention that, okay, bro, the file does not exist, and you sort of give them a specific sort of error. So the answer to this question would be that before trying to open the file, before trying to open the file, I'm going to take the questions just a minute. Before trying to open the file, try to see or try to check if the file exists or not. If the file exists or not. Or not. If it doesn't, give an error. If it doesn't, perhaps rather than writing error, आप इसे लिखो, if it doesn't output, that file does not exist. Output, that file does not exist. Now, just for your own understanding, this specific answer which I wrote, this includes 3 points. First point is that you need to check it before the file is trying to be open. So before trying to open the file, point number one. Second point is that you need to check if the file exists or not, point number two. And then the third point is that if it doesn't output, then the file needs to if it doesn't exist, the program needs to output that the file does not exist. But if you look up at the question is of 2 marks. So important exam tip up here, if the question is of 2 marks, you are expected to write 2 points, which means that even if I miss one of these 3 points, I'll be still getting a perfect 2 by 2. But if you tend to mention 3 points in a question where there is no set of requirement mentioned, like this question doesn't specify that you need to write 2 statements or you need to write 3 statements, in that case, it's better to go with, if there are 2 marks, it's better to go with 3 if you know the relevant point, so that if any one of the point is incorrect or if it's vague or anything of that nature, तो आपके marks उसमें cut ना हो रहे हो. सही है? So that's how you need to answer this specific question. You just need to mention these 3 points and you will be good to go. Any questions? Or should we move on? Let me see. I guess screen sharing का मसला solve हो गया. सही है? No questions? All right, good to go. I guess we don't have a question. ओह आप लोगों ने इतने ज़्यादा वो कर दिए क्वेश्चन. सर समवन एल्स इज शेयरिंग स्क्रीन. ओके ओके टाइमर लगा दिया, बंद हो गया, सब बंद हो गया. डोंट वरी, सब हो गया. सही है, सब मैनेज हो गया. Okay, so we are good to go. Perfect. Now let's move on. The next question now in this exam paper states that if I, let's say, if I have a scenario to create a flow chart, how will I be doing it? So this is one of those unique questions where the examiner, rather than giving you guys a specific flow chart or rather than giving you something beforehand, they're like, okay, you now need to create a flow chart and you need to create a flow chart for this model. So how will you be creating a flow chart? Now, some fundamental rules before moving on towards creating a flow chart. A flow chart always starts at some point and then it ends at a specific place. And in between, you need to make use of some concepts. What are those concepts? Initializing, conditional statements, maybe input output, and blah 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 loops. So let's do them. So if I have to create this model in your exam, my tip will be take a pencil and at the side try to make a small diagram that, okay, I need to take numbers to input. Okay, I need to take some input. I need to make the input sign, clear cut. Then it says that ignore any positive numbers, any numbers that are negative. which means that if there is something out of the range, I need to ignore them. Then I also need to count something, which means that apparently I also need a variable that basically stores how many positive numbers there are, and that variable needs to be initialized with the value of 0 originally. Okay, and then it says that you need to output the count of the positive numbers when the 0 value is inputted, and that should end the program, which means that this will only end when input is of 0. So when you make a flow like this in front of you, it's pretty much very easy to understand that what I will be doing. So how will I be starting off? First of all, whenever you start a flowchart, you write the statement start and you encircle it in an oval like this. Then you move on and you say that, okay, allow numbers to be inputted. So you can either take an input directly, but if you see and if you have read the question clearly, you clearly saw that you need to create a variable. And whenever we start writing pseudocode, whenever we write any program, we always initialize the variables at the start. And to initialize something or to do any process statement, we always make a square rectangle. Not a square rectangle, perhaps a rectangle, right? And in that rectangle, you can basically create a variable of your choice. For instance, I want to create a count variable that is going to count how many positive numbers there are. And definitely at the start, there has to be no positive numbers. So I say that at the start, the value of count variable is going to be 0. Now, every time there is a positive number, I want this count value to go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on until the program ends when the input 0 is entered. So now I need to take an input. So whenever you want to take an input and you want to write it in a flowchart, you need to make use of this special symbol like a parallelogram. You need to make this inclined sort of parallelogram. And for a lot of you who might have this one question in their mind, sir, my drawing is not that good. What will I be doing? Don't worry. You just need to make the right symbols. You just need to indicate that this thing is happening after this and this. You will be getting relevant marks. One important point is that whenever making a flow chart, you always indicate your direction by putting an arrow at the end so the examiner can understand that, okay, it started first, then it moved towards count, then from count it went to input. Now, once I have taken a value, I need to see that if it is negative, I need to ignore it. So what does this program say? This program says that you need to take on a loop, or maybe you need to keep repeating the taking of values or the inputting of values till a point where a person enters the value 0. So the moment you enter the value 0, you should just count how many positive numbers have been entered and just output that this many positive numbers have been entered in the last, I don't know how many iterations. So if you want to implement that logic, first and foremost thing is that you will be checking, is the number 0 or not? So whenever you want to create a conditional statement in a flow chart, you always need to make a diamond, something like this. ये clear cut हो जाए, but yeah, something like this. I'm gonna grab this. इसको थोड़ा यहाँ कर देते हैं, and let's just make the arrow above it, up here. So you need to make a diamond like this, and in this, rather than writing the keyword if, the way we write if generally, that if value is equal to 0, remember whenever you are making use of a flowchart, we need to write this word is. Is number equal to 0? And a question mark. Whenever you write this, this is the perfect way of writing a conditional statement. You never write if. There is no concept of if in flowchart. You always write is. Is number equal to 0 and ending with a question mark. Now your conditional statements always have two ways. Either it's a yes or it's a no. So we are aware that if it's a yes, this means my program needs to end. But chalo usme baad mein aate hain. Let's continue. If the number is not equal to 0, in that case, what's going to happen? So it's sort of similar. We will have another sort of a model just like this, where I can like sort of just copy this. Let me just duplicate this and can bring it down up here. That now the program says that if there is any sort of negative value, I need to ignore that value, which means that if a value is less than 0, rather than doing something, I should just go back and see that if there is any value inputted, let me ignore that value and let me go back and take another input. How will that happen? So I'd be like, okay, is number greater than 0? Less than 0? Yes, it is. So go back up here and up here, just retake the input again. So whatever the value the person enters, so for instance, a person entered something like -5. That -5 is going to come up here. Is -5 less than 0? Yes, it is. So you do nothing. You go back and you go come back to this step, and up here you're again taking the input. So sort of if you entered -5, the computer will directly ask you, okay, bro, give us some other value. So you ignore the value. That is how you ignore a value in a specific flow chart. And if it's not less than 0, then I need to see, okay, this apparently means that the value is greater than 0, because if it's not 0, if the value is not 0, if the value is not less than 0, this does mean that the value is greater than 0, because we don't have any other case left, which means that now this count variable which I created at the start, it's important that I increment the value of this. And by incrementing, I mean that you increase the value of it by 1. So how do I increase the value of it by 1? I'm again going to be creating a process box just like before, a rectangle, and in that rectangle I will be writing this count being incremented by the value of 1. What do I mean by incrementing? Incrementing means increasing the value by 1. And we will be making use of this counting solution which we studied earlier on in chapter number 7, that whenever you want to count something, you're going to write it this way, and boom, you're done with this. Now you want to go back because you want another input to be taken, right? So if you want to go back, you're just going to be creating this arrow, and you need to, it's important, it's better rather than creating two separate lines, to connect it to this single line, so that the examiner knows that, okay, either way, even if your count is less than 0, you do nothing, you go back to the new input. If it is greater than 0, okay, then you first increment the value of count and then you go back. But what happens when the person enters the value of 0? So the question says that the output, you should output the count of positive number when the 0 is input, which means that if this condition becomes true, is number equal to 0, you need to first output the count and then you should end the algorithm. So just like input, whenever you want to output something, you always make a parallelogram, and in that parallelogram you need to specify the count, right? So I might do something like count, and then I can add any message next to it, so with a comma, then two quotation marks because it's a string, and I can write something like positive numbers. So if it's 5, it's going to be like 5 positive numbers. And once I'm done with this, I want the program to stop. So just the way we have start up here, I'll be making this command and I'm going to write stop, and I will be encircling it with an oval, and boom, here you go. This is how you make a flow chart, and you're going to get a perfect 6 by 6 for this. Is this clear, everybody? Sir, can we first write that is number greater than or equal to 0 before writing number is equal to 0? Now the question is that if you want to do it that way, greater than equal to 0, in that case it's just going to become more complex. You can do it, but it's going to just become complex. Why? Because I want to create a model that sort of simplifies everything. If the first value which the user entered, it's 0, directly stop. So now the program which you said that, okay, what if I say like it's greater than equal to 0? So greater than equal to the ho hi nahi sakta. Greater than equal to the ho hi nahi sakta, because if it's greater than, then you want that the count value should be incremented. But if it's equal to 0, you want it to end. So when you want two actions at the same time, that's not possible. So what we did, we split it those two into two separate functions. We are like, okay, if it's greater than 0, then count को increment करो. If it's equal to 0, then end the program at that point. And if it's less than 0, then just go back, ignore that specific value. Say, sir, won't we write output before count? Um, Good question. Good question. I guess we don't write output because it बल्कि नहीं लिखना होगा. Yeah. Perfect. I forgot. बिल्कुल. The way we write input up here, we also need to write output. Thank you for that. You need to write output too. So we can write output up here. Output. Perfect. So whether you take an input or whether you take an output, you always write the keyword. Perfect. Sir, why will you also consider 0? Because the question clearly mentions that you need to consider 0. You see, it says that when the value 0 is inputted, you should end the algorithm. So if you don't separately consider the value 0, you will never get to know, okay, bro, how and when to end the value. So if you just read the question clearly, it clearly specifies on its own that one condition needs to be when the value is less than 0, the other is when it's greater than 0, and the third one is equals to 0. So no need to simplify it. What the way the question has specified the requirement, just follow that. Equals to 0, less than 0, and also if it's no, then it's apparently meant that it's greater than 0. That is how you solve this specific question. So don't we count plus 1 for 0? For 0, kis tarah? Abdul Rahman, I don't get your point. You said output count. So yeah, I did say that output count. So you need to output the count when so basically the question says that when the value of 0 is inputted, you need to output the count of whatever the positive numbers were. So like if I enter something like 10, it's going to be greater than 0, right? So the count value is going to become 1. Then you enter something like 5, it's going to be greater than 0, count value becomes 2. And then let's say you input something like a 0, so this has the value 2. So you need to first output how many positive numbers have been inputted. So it's going to be like, okay, output 2 positive numbers have been entered in this program, and then you're like, okay, let's stop off. Okay, so we have discussed this question. Let's now move on to the next question to see उसके अंदर हम क्या करते हैं. So the next question says that if I want to sort of also count negative number inside this, what will I be doing? So if I want to count in negative numbers in the same program, I'll be firstly creating a new variable, a new sort of counter to see whether it to for the negative values apparently. So and whenever I say that a value is less than 0, I'm going to be basically incrementing it, and at the end I'll be outputting it. So point number 1 up here will be a separate variable. A separate variable will be set up. Variable will be set up, and definitely if whenever I set up a variable, it will be always initialized, and initialized to what? If I am creating a count variable and I want to count how many values there are, so I always need to initialize it to 0. So a separate variable will be set up and initialized to 0. Then whenever the value of input is less than 0, is less than 0, the value of the variable is incremented, or I can say the variable is incremented. And when I say the word incremented, this basically means increase the value by 1, or you can even write the whole statement, but it's better to go with the exact keyword. Incrementing basically means it's a programming word to say that the value has been increased by 1, or like incremented by 2 means value increased by 2. So generally using the word incremented means increase the value by 1. And then definitely when you do this at 10, you also need to output it, right? And then you can say that even if you write it till here, you get perfect 2 by 2, but if you want that extra point, you can also mention this count will then be outputted at the end, will then be outputted at the end, and boom, you are good to go. This marks the end of this question. So this is a very good question because it now asks us for some pseudocode complexities, and also about some concepts which we have been studying throughout chapter number 7 and 8. And now let's go through the question. It says that a section of program code asks for 80 numbers between 100 and 1000 inclusive. What does the word inclusive mean? It means that your 100 as well as 1000, both of them are also included. So now we need to basically check that the numbers are in the correct range, and then if they are, then you need to store the valid numbers in an array. And it also counts how many of the numbers are larger than 500, and then outputs the result when finished. So this is the code, and it says that there are 4 errors in this code, and we need to specify the code error line number and also what's the relevant correct code of that specific statement. So the question says that there will be 80 values inputted, and then I need to check whether the value is between 100 and 1000. This means that if it's out of the range and it's not between 100 and 1000, you need to give an error. And then you need to basically store the value and at the same time count how many of those values are greater than 500. And once the program ends, you need to output the result कि यार कितने values were greater than 500. Let's read the code. So for such question, you need to take your pencil, you need to go from the very start, and you need to read it line by line. So okay, it's pretty clear. We have count as 0, good to go. Then we say that for index 1 to 80, which is perfectly fine because we have 80 numbers, so 1 to 80 is perfectly fine. Then it says that output enter a number between 100 and 1000. A person can enter the number, you input that, and now the first condition comes up here that while number is less than or equal to 99 and number is greater than equal to 1001, output this is incorrect. Now the question says that your value needs to be between 100 and 1000. This means that if it's greater than 1000 or it's less than 100, you need to give an error. But if you look up at the code, it says that while number is less than or equal to 99 and value is greater than or equal to 1001. Now it's a silly question because is there a specific integer value which can be both less than or equal to 99 and at the same time it's greater than or equal to 1001? Is there any such number possible? No, right? So this needs to be changed. This is error number 1 because You need to give an error that the value is incorrect when either the value is less than or equal to 99 or the value is greater than or equal to 1001. So the first error is up here in line number what? It's line number 5. So I'm going to write line number 5 and I need to write the relevant correct code up here. So what's the correct code? I would be like, okay, while, and after while I would be like, while this number is less than or equal to 99 or this number is greater than or equal to 1001, and you get one perfect mark for this. Continuing with the code, now if I see that okay, till this point I get to know that if the value is incorrect, you will say that this is incorrect, please try again, and you need to keep on entering while the value which you have entered, it's the correct in the correct range. And this logic which has been implemented up here, this is the range check which we studied in chapter number 7. So if you forgot the code for range check, this is the way you implement a range check. So yeah, then it says that you need to basically put the value into the variable. If you see, the question says that you need to store the valid numbers in an array, but an array can have multiple, like for instance, if this is an entire array, what I want to do is that if there is a value for a specific position, position number 1, position number 2, position number 3, whatever input comes in, I want to put that respective input at that position. So first value goes there, second value goes there, then third, and all these values depend upon this index position, right? So if I look up at this code, line number 9 says that whatever the value is, always put it into num array but at position number 80. But we don't want this. We want that you need to put it at a position which is whatever the index position. So if it's index position number 1, put it at position number 1. If the value of index is 2, put it at position number 2 in an array. Say, so if this is position number 1, this is position number 2, put it at position number 2. If the value of index is 3, put the value at position number 3. So for that reason, our second error comes up here at line number 9, where this point is incorrect. Line number 9 says that num80 should have the value, but no, I never want all of my values to just go into the position 80. I want the values to go at the position of whatever the index value is. So if index value is 0, put it at is position number 0, because the way this works is, the way this model works is that for the first person, who, like, the value is going to be 1 when I want it to enter for the first time. So whatever the output is for the first time, I'm going to put it at position number 1. Then definitely I can have for other elements too. So I have like this array which can have 2, 3, 4. So now the next time I want a new input to come up, rather than that input going at the same one, I now want to store that at position number 2. So to increment this one by one, we created this for loop which had a variable index, which is always going to go a next by next every time I take a new input when the loop repeats. And to ensure that this works perfectly fine, I need to ensure that whatever value I put in, this should go at the position which is that of index. So the correct code to this is that you need to specify that the value of number needs to go at num index. So num index, and in that num index you need to put the value of number. Clearly? So good to go. Now the next question says, and the next point says that if this number is greater than 500, then count should be incremented, which is perfectly fine. That if it's greater than 500, you should increment the count, and you need to keep on repeating this till when your values are done for 80 times. But if you see, we have implemented a for loop. A for loop ends with a next variable statement, right? So next index, this should be the ending of it. But if I focus up here, the question sort of mentions until index is equal to 80. Now this is wrong. Why? Because this thingy is only implemented when we have a repeat loop. But in this case, we don't have a repeat loop. We have a for loop. So this means that line number 14 is also incorrect, because rather than this being until index, because it's a for loop always ends with next index. So we need to change this to next index. See, examiner will be confusing you with such thing. Now, even though until index, if you forgot that it's a for loop, you will be thinking that, okay, it's a loop and it should go like this because it's perfect. There is nothing wrong with the statement, but the application has been implemented at the wrong place, and hence this needs to be next index up here rather than until index. So just like that, the final error, if you see, is now going to be somewhere up here. Now the question says that you need to output the result of how many values are greater than 500 once it ends. But if you go at the end, line number 15 says that you are outputting index. Bro, index stores the position. This stores the position. but I want to output the result of how many values are greater than the 500 trademark. So the result is being stored in the count variable. So for that reason, I will also be outputting count rather than outputting index. So for that reason, line number 15 has the last error, and the correct answer to that is output count. And boom, you do this, you get perfect 4 by 4. Now for all those who might have this one question in their mind, sir, that what if we write the correct line number but we mention the wrong code, will we still be getting marks? Well, let me tell you that if your line number is correct but your correct code part is wrong, you won't be getting marks in that, you will be losing marks. So it's really important that both your line number as well as your correct code, they both are 100% correct. If not, you will lose marks. So altogether, being correct of these two statements will eventually get you a 1 marker. Say, now let's move on to the next question. Now it's finally that easy logic gate question, but this is not an easy logic gate question. It's a complex logic gates question, and let's solve this together. So it says that this is a truth table in front of us, and we need to draw a logic circuit to represent the given truth table. Now, generally, the questions are in a way that we are given a logic circuit. We are always given a logic circuit, and we need to sort of create a truth table from it. We need to solve a truth table from it. However, in this case, the scenario is sort of a bit different. We have a truth table given and we need to create a logic circuit out of it. Now, the way you need to do this is that whenever you want to go from a truth table, let me even zoom in a bit so आपको और clear हो. Whenever you want to go from a truth table to a logic circuit, the best way is that you first of all make an expression of it. So you go from truth table to the logic expression. So you make the logic expression first, and then using that logic expression, the way we all have been teaching in the class, is you make the logic circuit. But now the question is, how do I create a logic expression all the way from a truth table? Now the way you need to do this is that whenever you have a specific truth table given like this and you want to create a logic expression, always look for the values where the output is 1. In this case, we only have the output x as 1 once up here and then 1 up here, which apparently means that my output is only going to be x when either this condition happens or this condition happens. But now how do I convert these ones and zeros into letters? So remember, anything which has the value 0, it needs to have a NOT gate in front of it. So if I say that the value of C is 0, I'm going to say that it's not C. Anything which has the value 1, in this case, like we have for A has the value 1, you don't add not next to it. That's the simple logic. So if I have to write the statement for this, the output will only be 1 when input for A is 1 and the input for B is 0 and the input for C is 0. So how will I be writing it? It's going to be X is going to be A and the second input is going to be 0 for B, and 0 for B means that it's going to be not B, and the input for C is also going to be 0, which means not C. So the output is going to be 1 when either this thing happens, this statement. This statement is sort of the same as writing this statement, and we can clearly see that the output will result in 1. Or the second way is that I do something like this. So I'll be like, okay, either this thingy, or the second way will be that my A is 1 and my B is also 1 and my C is also 1. And this tells me that, okay, either this thingy will give me the output X or this thingy will give me the output X. And both of them are connected using an OR gate because either this is going to become true or this is going to become true. But if you focus upon it, we sort of have successfully created a logic expression which usually is given to us in questions, right? Just look up here. We sort of created the exact same thing which we need to answer our question. So now this is my logic expression. Now I'll be shifting this logic expression into my circuit. So let's draw a circuit from this. So first and foremost, A needs to be connected with not B and not C. So there can be multiple ways of creating this circuit. It's not necessary कि आप A की method use करो, but A is being connected with not B. So let's make it something like A goes till here. Then we can have a B coming up like this. Let's extend it like this. Make another. So we have an AND gate up here. But before it goes to the AND gate, the value of B is being passed through the NOT gate because we have not B. So we need to make a NOT gate first, and then the value of that needs to go into this. First this, So we are done with this part, A and not B. And then we see that the result of this needs to be basically AND gated with not C, which apparently means that now we have a C gate coming up from here. Let's take it from here and let's bring it somewhere from here to the upper side so that we can sort of again implement it. This value is going to become NOT gate just like B. And then the value of not C and the answer of A and not B needs to be then implemented alongside an AND gate. So the output we get from here, let's bring that down here, and this will be eventually again AND gated. Now one tip for all of you, because a lot of times we mess up the shape of the gates, it's really important that you also write the name in front of it, is there a chota chota, so that if the examiner does not understand, he can somehow still fetch out that okay, the person is trying to implement this logic. Otherwise you might be losing marks, which we don't want. So till this point we have implemented one part of the statement. We created this case that okay, either this is going to become true, we created this, good to go. But now there is also A and B and C, which means that the answer of this then needs to be created and basically converted into an OR gate. But OR gate का दूसरा part में क्या है? We have this entire expression. So now we also need to draw the statement for this A and B and C. So now let's do it first for A and B, and then we can do it with and C later on. So if I want to do A and B, one way of doing this could be maybe doing it up here. So I can basically extend the line, or I can even do it one other way, that I can do something like B and C first, and then I can do it with and A. Either way, it does not make a difference, whatever suits you. So you can solve this question in multiple ways. To be very honest, you can make multiple diagrams. It's not necessary that you follow the exact map which I'm drawing up here. So if I want to do A and B, how will I be doing it? Let's say I take this one value from A till this point, and then I'm like, okay, let's also bring this B value beneath, and these two values are sort of then joined together at this point with an AND gate like this. And then the output of that is then again sort of implemented or basically joined using a value of AND gate from C. So I can again make another AND gate up here. Try to make it with a ruler in exam. But ज़्यादा इसके ऊपर focus ना करना, but try to make it as neat as possible. And the output of the second statement will then go to the same OR gate, and then we say that the output of this part and the output of this entire part will eventually be connected using an OR gate, which will eventually give me the final answer as X. And so you need to extend this line towards this, and boom, you get perfect 6 by 6 for this. Now, if you are somehow wondering, sir, how are these 6 marks divided? You should be aware that when we have 6 marks, this is basically, we have 6 gates inside it. So if I count the number of gates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we sort of have 7 gates which are either greater than 6, but if it's less than 6, it's a clear indicator that I've made something wrong. Now in this case, 1 mark will be for both the NOT gates, 1 mark will be for this, 1 mark will be for this, 1 will be for this, 1 will be for this, 1 will be for this. And so you will be getting perfect 6 if you implement it the right way. Now if you just want to make it even a bit more neater, you can make it even more neater, but the main point up here is to get the logic. One other exam tip which I would share with you all is that if somehow sometimes we have scenarios where this A wire wants to pass the wire of B, which is going this way. So if you want to implement something like this, one way of doing it is that if B is straight drawn like this, you can take this A wire and you can make something like this, a small jump. This small jump indicates that okay, this wire which is continuing below, this is sort of a wire which has been jumping through the wire B, which apparently means that it's the wire of A. Because if you sort of join them together, it's not clear whether it's B going this way, B going down, or B going straight. So whenever you want to cross two wires together, always make this small hopping sign in front of it so that it's clear that how you need to go through this wire to another. Easy के 6 marks. You don't want to lose upon these 6 marks, otherwise आप फिर थोड़े cooked हो रहे हैं. So now let's continue. Now the part B says that write a logic expression for the given truth table. Bro, because we were smart enough, we did that part up here. We created the logic expression beforehand. So we sort of solved part B beforehand. So we just need to copy this thingy and we need to write that up there. So अगर मैं इसी को ही सारा का सारा copy कर दूं, because I don't want to spend time on rewriting, या चलो कर लेते, कोई मसले की बात नहीं है. The answer is going to be X is equal to A and not B and not C, finally with OR gate, and OR gate के बाद A and B and C. And you get perfect marks for this. And the question clearly mentions do not simplify the logic expression. And why are they saying this? Because sometimes there can be a possibility that there is something like, okay, and not B. Okay, so or like I can say not A and after that or B. So you can sort of convert this into NOR gate, A nor B. So it's sort of same as saying not A or B, is same as saying A nor B. But because they clearly mention you are not allowed to simplify, so you are not allowed to take any such action. And when you implement this, you're going to get 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this, and boom, you get a perfect 3 by 3. Easy question. You have nothing to lose marks with up here. Now comes up that good question where a lot of students get confused कि सर पहले layer को solve करना है, दूसरे को करना है, तीसरे को करना है, चौथे को करना है या किसको करना है, सही है? So I know this has to be one of those very, 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 very sort of question where everyone is sort of shocked कि sir there is no exact answer to that, but don't worry, we do have an exact answer to it जो कि हम आज discuss करेंगे. You all have joined in for a very good cause. Inshallah you guys are going to love it. So let's read this question. The question says that this flow chart is inputting the weights of item in kilograms, okay, to be loaded onto a trailer, and any item over 25 kilogram is rejected, and the trailer can take up to 100 kilograms. Okay, let's take a look at the flow chart. We are starting off, we're initializing the values, we're taking input, we're checking that if the value is greater than 25, you increment the variable reject, and then you go back and you sort of retake the input. Clear cut. Okay, if it's not greater than 25, then you're storing the value in the variable total weight. And if the value of total weight then exceeds 100, then you want to subtract the weight which you just entered to it. So total weight minus weight, and you want to output that what's the weight of the items that have been entered, and you stop. But if it's not greater than 100, you want to go back and take an input again. Now the question says that you need to complete this trace table for this input data. So if I want to complete a trace table, there are a few rules. First and foremost thing, for all those who are worrying that sir order miss ho jata hai, that I start from here but in the marking scheme it's starting from here, if your values are correct throughout the entire columns, you will be getting full marks. Don't worry, you will be getting the marks. But now I will share the exact secret to how an examiner solves this question, how the examiner ensures the perfect order. Now, first and foremost thing, whatever is being initialized before an input statement, whatever is being initialized before any input statement like this, whatever is being done before an input, that goes in my first line. That goes in my first line. So for instance, total weight and reject, both of them are going to go in my first line. This is going to go there, this is going to go there. Then when I take the input after initializing the values, that specific thingy is going to go into the next line. So the first line is only for the purpose of initializing anything that's happening before taking any input. If there is no sort of initializing, yes, then input will be in first line. But because we sort of initialized stuff in the first value, go, we sort of are going to write total weight and reject in first line. And now when I take the input of 13, that's going to come in line number 2. And now I'm going to stay in this line. I'm going to stay in this entire line until I go back and take an input again. So when I go back to this point, then I am going to go to next line. For instance, let's solve it together. So now the value which has been inputted, we have seen it, it's given up here, it's 13. So 13 comes up here, and now the question says, is weight equal greater than 25? Is 13 greater than 25? No, it's not, which means that I will be adding it into total weight. So the value of total weight was originally 0, so 0 plus 13 the input, so this becomes 13. And now I need to write this 13 up here. So this 13 goes up here. Correct. Boom. Then it says, is total weight greater than 100? No, it's not. So go back. I go back to the same part where I was taking input. I come to this point and now I need to go back downwards. Input weight. Now I take the second value of input, which is 17. Now because it's a new input, I'm going to write it in the new line. Next line, 17. Now I go back to the question, is 17 greater than 25? No, it's not greater than 25. Again, implement the same steps. Total weight being increased by total weight plus weight. So it's going to be 17 plus 13. So to 13, because you don't have any calculators, you can have mental maths. It's going to be pretty easy. You just add 7. It's going to become 20 plus 10, 30. But it's recommended that even for such questions, try to do it manually. Just this way, 7 plus 3 is 0, 20. So what do we call it? गलत कर दिया ना, see I made that mistake, it's 40, so it's 7 plus 3 is basically 10, you get 1 up here and 1 1 1 3, सही था, सही किया था, my bad, so 30. So always try to do it manually alongside, so that if there is any error, especially for those complex sort of questions, तो आप उसके अंदर कोई गलती ना कर दें, सही है. So now we sort of mentioned 30 up here, we took the weight as 17, and now I go back to the question, and the question says that is weight greater than 100. Is it? No, it's not. So I go back. I go back and I return to the same point and I take the input once again. Now I take an input of the value 26. So I'm going to write 26 up here. And I return back and I see that is 26 greater than 25? Everybody, is 26 greater than 25? Yes, it is. Because it is greater than 25, and rather than going down, I'll be now following this path, which says that a reject needs to be incremented, and then you go back and take an input again. So how will I be representing that? This 0 is now going to become 1. Now, one other question, a lot of you might have this question, sir, hum to, when there is nothing, we sort of write this 0 0 beneath it. But remember, if I leave something blank like this, where I mention nothing inside it, it's sort of assumed that these blank thingies are having the same zeros and zeros and zeros. So this should be something clear to you. So now we took 1 and now we go back to the input part. So now we have done this, done this. So now we take 25 as an input. So 25 comes in, and now I go back to the program to see what's happening. So the question now says, is weight greater than 25? Now the point emphasis on greater than. So if I have something like 25 is greater than 25, remember 25 is equal to 25. 25 is never greater than 25. For that reason, this statement will be false. It's not greater than 25. So you go down and you add 25 into total weight, and that value is then stored in total weight variable. How do you do it? Just easy peasy. You come up here and you add the value of 25 into this 30. 30 plus 25 is 55. Correct. Now, you go back because it's not greater than 100, right? You go back and you take another input. So the next input is of 5. So till this point, आपको तो याद भी हो चुका होगा what's happening. 5 is not greater than 25, which means it needs to be added to total weight. So this is going to become 60. Then I take input of 10. 10 is again not greater than 25. And because 60 is also less than 100, I'm going to go back and take an input. So now I'm going to take an input for 10. 10 is also going to get added. Up 70 ho gaya. Clear cut, done. And now after 70, because 70 is also less than 100, I go back, take an input again. And now I take an input for 15. So now when I take an input for 15, 15 makes it 85. 85 is again less than 100. I go back, I take an input again for 35. Now when I enter 35, you see the condition was that if it's greater than 25, increment the reject. Because 35 is greater than 25, I need to follow this path, which means that it now, rather than being 35 being added up here, it's just going to increase the value of reject variable. So it's going to become 2, nothing up here, and I go back and take an input for 20. Now when I take input for 20, I can see that the value is gonna become what? 85 plus 20 is gonna make it 105. So we're going to write 105 up here, but then I can clearly see that 105 is greater than 100, which means that I now need to follow this step, that total weight, put the value of total weight as whatever the value was previously of total weight minus the weight which we just entered. So we just entered 20 and the last value was 105. So 105 minus 20, it's 85. So you go back to 85. And at the same time, the question says you now output weight of items, comma, total weight, number of items rejected, comma, reject. So now you write the exact same thing up here. Thoda chota chota likhna, but yes, do mention everything. Weight of items, just the way we have up here. So weight of items, and then you mention comma, and what's the weight of items? Total weight, right? Yahan pe kya output hua? Total weight. So you do total weight, and then you do total weight, and then you do something like, and let's say if you don't have space, you can also go on to the next line, but it's recommended to stay within the same line. And so number of items rejected, you can do it up here. Let's say number of items rejected, and then you can do comma, and then you can do reject, and boom, you solve it the right way and you get a perfect 5 by 5. This is how you solve this question the right way. Sahi hai? This is not the input. Words, word, wow, 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 what? Eyes, chill, 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 chill. Yeah, what's wrong? What's wrong? This is the input. Sir, won't we write the values? What values? What values do you want to write? This is the input. This is the input. See, this clearly mentions this is the input. Haika, what values do you want to write up here? 85. The question says that you need to mention what? Total weight. You need to output weight of items followed by total weight, whatever the value of total weight variable is. So what's the value of total weight up here? Oh, yes, 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 my bad. Bilkul, 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 bilkul. You need to write 85 up here. Thank you. And then you need to write the value of reject. So reject ki kya hai? 2. So yep, you write 2 up here. Perfect. That's how you do it. Say. So I learned that we remove the commas when writing output. Okay. Now there are two things up here. Commas को remove करने वाले point जो है ना, at some points you need to remove them, at others they might be. So it's better कि you don't get into this, but generally in marking schemes, what I've also noted, at some points they are including it and at some points they aren't, so it's not that important, but if you want you can remove it. So let's say we remove it, it won't make any difference, and even at this case if you don't mention it, it's better, say, so ignore the commas. But this pseudocode or any sort related to pseudocode or programming in paper number 2, the syntax is very lenient, so you won't be losing marks upon stuff like adding a comma or maybe missing something else. But yes, there are marks for stuff like adding these quotation marks. You miss that and yes, you're going to lose marks. But because you don't want to add a comma, let's say we can also skip a comma. So let's assume कि हम comma नहीं add करते, and because you have learned it that way, तो हम भी इस तरह कर लेते that throughout our past paper classes we won't be adding comma. Happy? Chalo. Now let's move on to the next question, question number 9, which is again another sort of a good question. This question says that verification checks can be made upon an input data. What is verification? Verification is basically a process of computer science to ensure that whatever data you have entered to a program, it's exactly what you wanted to enter. What do I mean by this? Let's say you want to create an account and you enter the password. Now you might want to enter the password once, but ghalti se you might have pressed some other key. So you entered incorrect password. So how do I ensure that the password which you wanted to enter is entered? Two ways. First is that I ask you to enter the password twice, which is the case in most cases, in most scenarios, that you enter the password twice while creating account. Why? पहली दफा में गलत डाल दिया, दूसरे में सही हो गया. So you got to know, oh, I mentioned it incorrectly at the first glance. And the second way is that you create an account and on your screen the platform on its own tell you that okay bro, you entered this, is this correct or not. So sometimes you set a username or something and it gives you on your screen a check that this is your username, confirm or not. So you just need to click the confirm button if it is. If it's not, so you can click on that close button. So now this confirmation message popping up is a type of verification check which we call as screen visual check. Whereas the one where you need to basically, even I can write up here so that अगर बाद में कोई देख रहा हो, this one is basically screen visual check. And then the second one where you're asked to enter stuff twice, that's known as double entry. So now this question asks us to basically tick upon one box that conducts a verification. Now checksum, no, that's not a verification. Double entry check, boom, correct, B. Echo check, parity check, none. These, the other three are transmission, are basically error detection methods for transmission methods. Now you might have this one question, sir, isn't this sort of some P1 related question? Yeah, sort of it is, but sometimes, it's up to the examiner. Examiner can do anything. So don't be like, paper 2 में बिल्कुल P1 की चीजें नहीं आ सकती. It's in front of us. We sort of have a question related to P1 being tested in P2, but the answer to that is still relevant to paper number 2. Let's move on to the next question. And now this is that one very high intensive pseudocode question which you get before that 15 marker. So the question says that a function length x finds the length of a string x and a function substring xyz finds a substring of x starting at position y and is z characters long. The same functions which we have been studying in chapter number 7 and in chapter number 8, the substring function and the length function. This is just a slight description to it that if you forgot, koi nahi bhi there to help you. Now it says that the first character in the string is in position 1. Why did they tell us? Because sometimes people like that if I want to find the length of something, there can be an assumption that because computer takes the first value to be 0 sometimes, like in arrays we sometimes take the first position to be 0, it's better that you don't have any ambiguity. And now in this case, if you started off with the value of 0 because you assumed it that way, aapka galat hoga, because the question clearly mentioned that the first character will be at position number 1. So now it says that show the value of the variable after this statement has been executed. So what does this statement do? The statement apparently just takes the value, the string computer science, and puts it into a variable with the name p. So your computer science statement now is stored within the p variable. So the answer to this is also pretty straightforward. What's within the variable? It's computer science. Boom. You do it this way and you get 100% correct marks. Now, if you have this one question in your mind, sir, इनको हमने quotation marks में डालना है या नहीं डालना, so in this case कोई डालने की जरूरत नहीं है because it says कि value बता दो, whatever the value is, you put that value in front of it. Then it says in q variable store the length of p. Now we know that the length function basically returns the length of a specific string. So if I want to count the length, it's going to be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Remember, space is always counted. Space is always counted. So 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. So the answer to this is 16. Now, the third question says that you need to make use of substring function. What's a substring function? It's a specific type of function which takes a specific value and then it splits that value and basically takes a part out of it and stores that in a different variable. For instance, what this does is that it is telling us that go to this variable p, which means that go to computer science and then go to position number 10, and from position number 10 take the next 7 characters and store that answer in the variable r. You can even see the description up here. The substring finds a substring. What does a substring mean? A smaller subpart, okay, a smaller part of a string of x starting at position y and z characters long. So now if I have to go to variable p, I go up here, then I need to go to position 10. So now it told me that the first position is 1. So let's do it this way. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, this is my position number 10. And from here it said that from starting from position 10, grab the next 7 characters. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So I'm going to grab these 7 characters and I'm going to put this whole word in the variable r. So what's the value of r? R value is basically this whole part, which is science, SCIENCE. Done. Now it says that you need to find the length of r, which is what? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So you write 7 up here, and then in t part it says the fifth part, it says that you now need to again implement a substring, but rather than p, do it on r. Starting at position number 1, and at from position 1 grab the 3 characters. So we're going to go to starting position, which is this position number 1, and from here I need to grab 3 characters. 1 then 2 then 3. This 3 includes the first one, right? So it's going to become SCI. And you do this and you get a perfect 5 by 5. Sahi hai? Any questions, anything, or are we good to go? If there is any question, to पूछ लो. All right, seeing none, I guess we can move on. Everything is clear, right? Yes, Mano. Any questions? You can type them in the chat box. Iman, anyone who has any questions, आप लोग पूछ लो. I'm there. सही है. सर मुझे ये समझ नहीं आया. डोंट वरी, कोई मसले की बात नहीं है. इसके अंदर हो ये रहा है. इफ यू रिमेंबर वी स्टार्ट, सर हाउ मेनी पास्ट पेपर विल बी सॉल्विंग, वी आर गोइंग टू सॉल्व अराउंड अबाउट 3 years worth of past papers. So इस क्वेश्चन में हो ये रहा है कि बेसिकली वी आर इंप्लीमेंटिंग अ लेंथ फंक्शन एंड वी आर इंप्लीमेंटिंग द सबस्ट्रिंग फंक्शन. लेंथ फंक्शन उसकी लेंथ रिटर्न करते हैं कि उस स्टेटमेंट या वेरिएबल के अंदर जो भी स्टेटमेंट होगी, जो भी स्ट्रिंग होगी, उसकी क्या लेंथ है वो हमें रिटर्न कर दिया. सबस्ट्रिंग क्या करते हैं? इट टेक्स अ पार्ट ऑफ इट. अब ये एक स्ट्रिंग है पी, उसके अंदर कंप्यूटर साइंस वर्ड है. क्यू के अंदर हमने वैल्यू स्टोर की लेंथ ऑफ पी, तो जो भी इस क्यू का आंसर वो हमने यहाँ पे लिखना है. सो लेंथ ऑफ पी क्या करता है? इट टेक्स द स्ट्रिंग, इट काउंट्स हाउ मेनी कैरेक्टर्स आर इनसाइड इट एंड देन इट रिटर्न्स द रेलेवेंट लेंथ. सो इफ आई काउंट दिस होल सेंटेंस, आई सी दैट देयर आर 16 letters inside it. So I write the answer as 16. Then it says that in R you need to put the value of substring, go to the variable p, and फ्रॉम द फर्स्ट पोजिशन हमने इसमें से एक हिस्सा फेच आउट करना है. अब क्या हिस्सा फेच आउट करना है? दैट हिस्सा विच यू नीड टू फेच आउट इज दैट यू गो टू पोजिशन नंबर 10 एंड फ्रॉम पोजिशन नंबर 10 जो आपके अगले 7 कैरेक्टर्स है आपने उनको ग्रैब करना है. So if I start counting each position, this is character number one is at position one. So this is position one, this is position two, this is position three, this is four, five, six, seven, eight. This space is nine. This S is at position number 10. So from position number 10, I need to grab the next seven characters. So one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So I need to one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So I need to grab these seven characters, and those seven characters are then stored up here, and that tends to be signs. Then in fourth, it's saying कि आप इसके ऊपर length function use करो. So the length of this is now going to, if I count this, it's 7. And finally, in fifth part, it says that now take the substring of this signs keyword, where you need to start from position 1, which is S, and from starting from the position 1, grab the three characters. So first, second, and third. So you grab these three characters and you put them together and a variable with the name of t. So what's the value of t? It's sci, and that is how you solve this question. So yeah. So now let's move on to the next part of it. This part B says that you now need to write a pseudocode statement to extract the word computer from P and store it in the variable F. So it's a two-marker question. It asks me to create a variable F, and in that F variable, you don't need to declare it up here, by the way. It's a two-marker question. You just need to do F, and inside F, I just want to copy the computer part of this statement. So I just need this part. अब ये मैं कैसे करूँगा? I will be making use of the substring function. I'm going to write the keyword substring. I'll be like, okay, bro, in this substring function, go to the variable P where I have the value. Because I want the computer's first letter is up here. This is position number 1. So go to position number 1, and from position number 1, I want you to grab how many letters computer के अंदर कितने? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So starting from the very first position, grab the 8 characters. So it's going to come to, what's going to happen? It's going to go to the variable P. It's going to go to position number 1. It will be like, okay, I'm going to grab करना है, so let me grab it. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, eight. It's going to grab this part and it's going to store it in the variable F. So what's the value of F now? It's computer. And that is everything you need to implement up here. Boom, you get an easy 2 by 2 up here. If I continue to question number 11, now this question is a very easy question and it's from databases. And what it asks us is that there is a table with the name of performance where it stores the record of the performances at a local theater. We need to state how many fields are there and how many records are there. So fields are always your columns, remember, whereas records are always your rows. So how many columns do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 columns, so 5 fields. How many records? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, it always starts from here. So it's 8. Then it says that if I want to implement 2 validation checks on the show number field, what could they be? So this is my show number field. If I want to implement some validation checks up here, what could they be? Firstly, if you see, it can be clearly seen that it follows some specific format. So one check which we studied in chapter number 7 was that we can implement a format check up here, that whether it follows that strict format of SN, SN, SN or not. Secondly, if I see that all these show numbers are literally 5 characters, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on 5. So this means that I can also implement a length check, that if it's not 5, then this means it's not the correct show number, right? So these are 2 proper validation checks. However, you can also make use of presence check. You can also make use of type check. They are also perfectly fine up here. Yes, Fike, do you have a question? जो भी question हो, just send it in the chat box and I will get back to you on it. All right, so now let's move on. So the next part says that you now need to show the output that would be given. Let me even bring this chart in front of me so मुझे नजर भी आए. Sir, how can we use presence check? Presence check basically is a specific type of check which is implemented to ensure that it's not left empty. So if I make use of a presence check up here, it will ensure that this specific show number for any specific show is not empty. So if a person tends to mention nothing inside it while filling the database, like when they're entering the data into the database and they enter nothing up here, let's say they want to keep it empty, the database will give an error. They will say that, no, bro, you need to enter something. So this error to enter something is caused because we make use of a presence check. So for that reason, because we don't want to keep anything empty up here, we can also make use of presence check. And how can we make use of type check? Because we can say that this is alphanumeric. So if it's not alphanumeric, we can say that, bro, the type is invalid and you need to re-enter. Now, part number C says that you now need to show the output that would be given by this SQL statement. So when we want to give an output, you always need to write in the answer section these two values, date and title, and in the exact same order. So first I need to write the date and then I need to write the title. And what values do I need to write? Where first condition is that the value of sold out is not. Not sold out means that it needs to have either value no, false, or anything which is sort of related to negative, right? And secondly is that the type should be jazz. So if I go up there, I can clearly see that sold out no, and at the same time type is jazz. So it's only at one point up here that if my jazz, this is one jazz, this is the second jazz. So it says that your sold out should also be no. So this means the only point which sort of follows this trend is this specific record. So now I need to output the values of this, but इसमें output सब नहीं करना. I just need to output the date and I want to output the title. So what's the date? The date is 3rd November. What's the title? Acoustic Evening. So I will be first of all writing the date because it's first up here. So I'll be like 3 November. Then if you remember, I even created a video on this on my Instagram page, that you don't need to add a comma, just add a bit of gap and write the second name, Acoustic Evening. Acoustic Evening. And the moment you do this, you'll get a perfect 2 by 2 for this. Moving on, this is the last question, theoretical pseudocode question before the 15 marker, where it says that now you need to rewrite this pseudocode algorithm using a while loop and while. So foremost, the first thing is that whenever we have a for loop, we don't create a separate count variable. But when we have a while loop like this, a while loop always includes a count variable or a counter variable or any variable that needs to be checked for a condition. So if I want to make use of a while loop up here, definitely what will I be doing? पहली बात, b being initialized with false, ये तो same to same ही रहेगा. But then a while loop always checks a condition, right? It always goes in a way, while count is, let's say, less than or equal to 12, do this thingy. So this count needs to be created by us. So we are going to create a variable count, no need to declare it if it's not stated. And now the question is whether to initialize it with 0 and 1. So if you see in the question, the for loop gets started off with 1 because it also starts from 1. We will say that my count is also going to start from 1. And now I'm going to be making use of a while loop. I will be like, okay, while this count is less than or equal to 12. Why equal to? Because I need to run till 12. So it should be equal to 12. What should I do? While do the following part. What? If a, and rather than counter, because the loop had counter, we can also create the variable name to be a counter like this. That's even perfect. You need to do it counter wise. Say it's 100% same. If a counter is equal to num, okay, I forgot taking input, my bad. So we need to take the input beforehand. So focus, say, so input num. If it is equal to num, in that case, you make the value of b as true. So b as true, then you make use of an end if up here. And now rather than having a next counter, a while loop always have end while, but we always increment the value manually, right? Because we don't have a next function which does it automatically for us. So this counter value on our own needs to be incremented this way. So counter, and within the value of counter, I want you to put counter +1. And now if I follow up and look up at this image, generally, it could be clearly seen that this, sir, in while loop, do we take input again? No, in this case, we don't need to take an input. Why? Because this input has been taken outside the for loop. So because this input has been taken outside the for loop, we will also take the input outside the for loop. If, for instance, this input was taken within the for loop, yes, in that case, this input would have been within the while loop. But because input in the scenario mentioned within the question is outside, तो हम भी outside करेंगे. So if you look up at this code, it's sort of very similar to the linear search method which we studied in chapter number 7 and 8, right? That it's going to search it, it searches for a specific value within a array, within an array. So now it's an array with a, and the counter value is what we are manipulating, and we are saying if it's equal to the value which we entered, then you make the value of b as true, otherwise it stays false. So the part B says that you need to identify the purpose of the algorithm. So the purpose of this algorithm is to basically act as linear search. So you just need to write the keyword linear search. And if your concepts are not clear and if you're not able to interpret what's happening up here, to be honest, you're always going to lose marks in these identify the purpose of algorithm. These algorithms which are generally tested up here are the standard methods of solution. And if you open up your harder education book, in that chapter number 7 has in great detail the standard method of solutions. Or even if you don't want to use that, open up my notes. You can open up my website too, and on that you can sort of find out my notes. In that, go to chapter number 7 and 8, and in that you're going to find all the standard methods of solution. Some are in 7, some are in 8, so go and review those, and inshallah these questions are usually tested from there. Sir, so when do we take input in the while loop? You will only take input in the while loop if in the question the input was also within the for loop. सही है? So यहाँ पे loop से बाहर है, so इस वजह से up here we are also assuming कि बाहर ही होगा. Continuing, the last part for today class says that explain the differences between a while loop, end while loop, and a repeat until loop. Now, to be honest, both of them are sort of loops which are being used it's sort of being used again and again. At some point, I want to make use of while loop, at the other, it's going to be repeat loop. But there are two major differences. The first difference is that the while loop checks the condition at the top. So it's like while count is less than 20. Repeat loop is like, okay, repeat blah, 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 blah until something is like until count is equal to 20. One checks the condition at the end, the other checks the condition at the top. So the one which checks the condition at the top, it's known as precondition loop. So we say while loop is a precondition loop, or you can even say that it checks the loop at the top, condition loop. And because it says explain the differences, I'm going to say whereas repeat until loop is post-conditional loop. This is one difference which almost everybody knows when talking about while loop and repeat loop. The main problem arises in the second difference. Now, the second difference exists in this case that let's say if the value of counter was something like 13, if the value of counter was 13 beforehand, and I come up here and it checks this condition while 13 is less than or equal to 12, this statement is false. Because it's false, we will never run this, right? And we do not execute anything within it. So this shows us that there is a possibility that a while loop is never run. So what if the value of counter was something outside the range? So this means that if this condition becomes false, this loop will never run. So there is a great possibility that if something like this happens, the value within or the statements within a loop may never run. But if I have something like a repeat loop always has the until condition at the end, which means that even if count is something like equal to 13 and I enter something like 14, because it's outside the range, because it's, or like I say greater than 13 or less than 13, इस तरह कर लेते हैं repeat, and you need to until repeat this entire thing until count is, let's say, less than 12, and my count value is 11 in this case, and I go inside it, whatever I have inside it, let's say output high, this output statement will be executed first, and then it's going to reach this condition where when this is checked, you're going to exit it. So the best part about repeat loop is that repeat loop is always going to run once, whereas while do loop might not run ever. So we say that while loop may never run, and that is why we say while loop may never run as a characteristic of it, may never run, whereas repeat until loop may run once, whereas repeat until loop in special conditions may run once. Until loop may run once. And this basically marks the end of our 60 mark content, and we sort of have solved the perfect 60 by 60 inside this. It's 11:40, and do you have any questions regarding this? This 15 marker inshallah ta'ala will be solved tomorrow, because I want you all to understand the concepts, at least for the basic few classes, for the first few classes. I want you all to be very, very good with the conceptual part. If your concepts are not strong, especially for the basic part, to be honest, acing a 15 marker is very, very difficult. So going to be implementing a logic, at least for the first few paper number 2 classes, that we will be slowly taking the whole class, and then eventually, definitely once we go to a bit advanced level, we will be solving these questions in great detail, थोड़े faster pace के साथ, and then our whole class, one class will be including 15 marker plus the first 60 mark content. But for the first 2 to 3 past papers, I want to keep an entire hour for the 15 marker discussion so that you can understand how to solve the 15 marker. This is it for today. Yes, of course, this solved paper will be shared, inshallah, in the group chat. Don't worry at all. For those who are not aware, the past paper session deadline will be the 1st of April. If you have filled the form, perfect. Our TA will get in touch with you, inshallah, over the weekend. We will be having our second demo class tomorrow where we will be solving this, what do we call it? 15 marker. Will this be uploaded? Yes, this will be inshallah uploaded on the YouTube channel. Don't worry. Apart from that, if you have any other questions regarding any past paper query regarding this whole material which we just solved, you can reach out to me, Abhi. You can ask it right now. If you have any questions, आप अभी पूछ लो regarding anything. If there was a question I might have missed previously because everyone was sort of spamming them again and again, तो मुझे एक दफ़ा फिर भी बता दो so that I can explain. So sir, end while से पहले एक और बार input नहीं लेंगे. एंड वाइल से पहले क्यों आपको इनपुट लेने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है? वो तो हम तब लेंगे ना इनपुट जब आपके इस सिनेरियो के अंदर भी तो फॉर लूप के अंदर इनपुट है. ये तो ये बोल रहा है कि आपने एक ही वैल्यू इनपुट की, फिर आपने पूरे एरे में उसको चेक किया. सो हमने भी वही किया, हमने एक ही इनपुट लिया, हमने पूरे एरे में वो चेक किया. इफ वी वुड हैव टेकन एन इनपुट अप हियर ओनली इफ आई से दैट दिस इनपुट वाज टेकन विद इन द लूप. सही है? एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस एवरीबॉडी? कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हो पूछ लो. Any question which might have been missed previously. Perfect, Zohar. Perfect. Mm, no other questions, right? सर डायग्राम्स पेन से बनानी है? यस, डायग्राम्स पेन से ही बनानी है. पहले अगर पेंसिल से करते हो तो कर लो. यस, दिस पेपर विल बी शेड, फातिमा, डोंट वरी. आप पहले अगर पेन से करते हो आप पेन से कर लो, बट बाद में इंश्योर करना कि आप इसको पेपर के साथ, आप सॉरी, आप पहले पेंसिल से करते हो तो कर लो, बट बाद में इट्स रिकमेंडेड एंड इट्स नेसेसरी कि आप पेन से ज़रूर करना, मार्क्स नहीं मिलेंगे. ओनली अ मंथ इज द, बट योर पास्ट पेपर सेशन इज़ फॉर 2 months. फॉर नहीं, we don't have a month left. Your paper number 1 is around the 13th of May, whereas your paper number 2 is at 18th May, and this computer science past paper session is for 1.5 months, which will go till your 18 May, I guess 19 May. सही है? So आपको 1.5 months के लिए this past paper session is 14K for 1 month. You won't be paying for 2 months. For computer science, you will be only paying for 1 month, and I will be giving you a free 15 days access just because you will have your CIEs, and I don't want you to charge. I don't want to charge you guys for the next 15 days. So you just need to pay it once for the first month, and you will get free complimentary access for the next 15 days. So this is a 1.5 month access, and you will be paying 14K only once. It's not a 2 months course. Say, Abdullah, is that clear? Any other questions, anybody? Aman ka, nahi. What would your past paper session include? So, okay, so our past paper session will be including all these live papers which we are just solving the way we did it today. Similar to this, we will be solving other paper number ones. We will be solving other paper number two. Our plan is to basically cover up 2023 to 2025. However, this depends because we will ensure that your concepts are more focused, but the whole concepts will be clarified through these set of papers. And alongside this, upon registration, you will get access to my notes followed by our topical videos. So if there is a specific topic which you might feel like is a bit weak, you will be given access to our platform where you can review our notes, and followed by that you can watch me solving topic wise questions for you all, so that you can sort of revise whatever you are weak with. And just like that, we're going to have 1.5 hour daily class every day till your CI is inshallah, solving one paper every day, ensuring that everything is being explained in the right way, so that you're not confused with what an examiner might be asking, kya ho raha hai, kya nahi ho raha, and blah 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 stuff. Clear? Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Yes, Fike, if you have a question, you can send it in the chat box. Let me see, आपने भेजा है because okay, sorry, मैंने देखा ही नहीं. Sir, what's the best time division for exam? What's the year of this paper? This paper is the specimen paper 2B, सही है, from 2023, and the best time division for exam वो मैंने आपको शुरू में ही बता दिया था that you need to implement it in a way Your first 60 mark needs to be solved in 45 minutes, and the remaining 1 hour should be spent for the 15 marker. If you have practiced it the right way, I can assure you that this could be done in 25 to 35 minutes. If you practice it well, and then you can spend the remaining time for 1 hour on this, and you can even have 15 minutes for revision, right? So don't worry, this could be done easily in 40 to 45 minutes only if your concepts are clear. And that is why I'm saying कि आप पहले पेपर खुद सॉल्व किया करो, एंड उसके बाद मेरे ऊपर हमारे साथ लाइव आया करो, सो दैट यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड इट बेहतर. किस तरीके से, एक सेकंड आयजा हैज अ क्वेश्चन. आयजा, व्हाट्स द व्हाट्स रॉन्ग? एक सेकंड, let me go back there. I didn't see your message, my bad. So you see, this is our trace table. What's wrong up here? You want to see something? अब इसके ऊपर देखो, if you even open up the marking scheme, our answer is sort of similar. No, okay. Acha, about the quotation, again the same thing as the commas. In some questions you're going to see quotation marks included है, किसी में नहीं included, so it's not that big of a difference. सही है, कोई इससे इतना major difference नहीं. The main thing is basically these values. आपके values same होनी चाहिए. And also if you just want it's also okay, that's also a valid point, but to be very honest, the main thing is weight of items followed by 85, number of items rejected, and 2. But if you want, you don't want to add it, आप इसको remove भी कर सकते. If you just want to take this assumption कि ये screen के ऊपर किस तरीके से आएगा, so you can sort of do it this way. Happy now? This also explains the whole model. Easy सी. मुझे लगा कोई वैल्यू में आप बोल रहे हो कुछ इनकरेक्ट है. सर, हाउ आर मार्क्स डिवाइडेड इन द फ्लो चार्ट क्वेश्चन? वो आपके जितने आपके रेलिवेंट वो है उसी के बेसिस के ऊपर ही आपको है. फॉर एवरी रेलिवेंट स्टेप यू आर गेटिंग 1 mark. So every one special block, every value being incremented in that, वो सारा का सारा उसके अंदर ही वहां से हो रहा है. So like if I show you up the flow chart for you, किधर गया? So you will be getting 1 mark, 6 marks है ना? So 1 mark for this part. Then एक, how many, count them, 1 2 3 4 5 6 आपके मेजर ही हो गए. सो इसके अंदर जो आपके इनपुट आउटपुट है इनके 1 mark हो जाएंगे, स्टॉप स्टार्ट के 1 mark हो जाएंगे, 1 2 3 4 फॉर देम. सही, सो यू गेट 6 फॉर दिस. सो आप ब्रेक डाउन से ज्यादा ट्राई टू फोकस अपॉन इंश्योरिंग दैट द क्वेश्चन इज बीइंग सॉल्व द परफेक्ट वे. ओके, लेट मी सी इफ देयर आर एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस. And what is your website and YouTube channel? Of course, I can share the link with you all. The name for the YouTube channel is Code Catalyst. You can even search it up on Google, on YouTube channel, on YouTube, and आपको मिल जाएगा. I can share the link with you all. As for the website, it's again Code Catalyst ही के नाम से है. But if you want the exact link to it, I can share that with you too. Just give me a minute. This is the link to our YouTube channel. I've shared it within the chat. There you go. And then I'm also sharing the website. दोनों पे you can find multiple resources. And also if you are in part of our community group chat, I would recommend कि आप वो भी ज़रूर join in कर दें, क्योंकि you're gonna find a lot of useful stuff up there. No worries everybody, I hope it was helpful. Sir, should I read notes for P1 or book? At this point, if your concepts are somewhat good, I would recommend going with reading the notes, to be honest. सही है. सर, हाउ टू सॉल्व बबल सॉर्ट ट्रेस टेबल? बबल सॉर्ट ट्रेस टेबल करेंगे ना, आप क्यों परेशान होते हैं? जब यहाँ पे क्वेश्चंस आएंगे वो खतरनाक किस्म के, तो हम वो भी इजीली कर लेंगे, सब हो जाएगा, डोंट वरी. Then Sharik has questions. Okay, Sharik. My bad. Oh, Sharik भाई ने बहुत ही बोल दिया. So do we take sold out values as booleans in database? In this question? In this question. Yep, it's taken as boolean up here. In this question, it's boolean. Why? Because if it wasn't boolean, आप यहाँ पे ये नहीं कर सकते थे. Not before something indicates that this sold out is a boolean. Otherwise, it would have been something like sold out being equal to नो. सही है, इफ इट वाजंट बूलियन वो फिर इससे लिखा जाता है, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट सोल्ड आउट, इट्स सॉर्ट ऑफ एज्यूम दैट इट इज बूलियन वैल्यू. सही है, इट्स अ बूलियन. सो हाउ डू वी डिफरेंशिएट? इन दिस केस आपको वो क्वेश्चन वाइज डिफरेंशिएट होगा. वंस वी गेट टू अ क्वेश्चन लाइक दैट, उधर मैं आपको एग्जैक्टली इसका डिफरेंस एक्सप्लेन करूंगा. यू कैन नॉट सॉर्ट ऑफ गेट इट परफेक्टली फाइन एट दिस पॉइंट. नो प्रॉब्लम, नो प्रॉब्लम, कोई मसले की बात नहीं है. फारिस, टेक दिस पास पेपर सेशन एंड इंशाल्लाह यू गोना लर्न एवरीथिंग इन ग्रेट डिटेल. सब गुड हो जाएगा. सही है. शारिक अगेन हैज अ क्वेश्चन. गिर गया शारिक. लेट मी सर्च फॉर शारिक. ओ, शारिक, आई एम अनएबल टू फाइंड योर नेम. ओके, डन. ओके, यू कैन सेंड मी दैट स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन जहाँ पे आपने ये किया, आई कैन लेट यू नो बाद में, सही। यू कैन इवन सेंड इट इन द चैट बॉक्स in that. Yeah, I know there are multiple cases जहाँ पे वो इसको टेक्स्ट के तौर पे लेते हैं, but in that's only when they assume that the value up here is of the type string, text और alphanumeric, सही है। if it's of the type boolean फिर आपने quotation marks में नहीं डालना होता। so in this case यहाँ पे हमें कोई ज़रूरत ही नहीं है कि हम इसको quotation marks में या कुछ में करें, हम वो तो तब होगा जब हम इसको when we write the SQL statements on our own, so when we write the question and we solve such question इंशाल्लाह आगे, तो उसके अंदर हम सॉल्व कर देंगे, डोंट वरी एट ऑल, सही। Maru has a question. Where is Maru? Mm, so Maru, let me open a chat box with Maru. All right. Any other questions? Maru, sir, I've checked out the notes you have sent on. Are those the notes that are, yes, they will be the same notes. सर इज इट ओके टू इनरोल फॉर योर क्लासेस? या ऑफ कोर्स, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, आप लोगों ने आज वैसे भी नहीं करना, यू हैव टाइम टिल संडे नाइट, वी गोना हैव द क्लास टुमारो, आप 15 मार्कर अच्छे से समझ लेना, इफ यू अंडरस्टैंड इट द राइट वे, एंड देन इफ यू वांट टू मेक द डिसीजन ऑफ ज्वाइनिंग इन, यू कैन ज्वाइन इन, बट अभी कोई जल्दी की जरूरत नहीं है, आराम से सब हो जाएगा, सही है। All right, I have the same paper open for just for, but in my question there are 11 lines of code only. 11 lines. तो हमारे वाले में कितने, लेट मी सी। इट्स द सेम बाय द वे, इससे कोई डिफरेंस नहीं, अगर मैं अभी भी आपको ओ लेवल का भी खोल के दूं ना, फॉर एनी रैंडम पेपर इट वॉन्ट मेक एनी बिग डिफरेंस। व्हाट क्वेश्चन इज दिस? सो ओके, then it might be a bit different for the specimen paper, only for the specimen paper, correct, but generally for all the other papers your question paper is exactly identical. You can open up any paper on your own right now, open any year paper, any variant paper, check it for IGCSE, check it for O level, it's 100% सेम, कोई उसके अंदर वो डिफरेंस नहीं होता, सही है। आई गेस हाँ, मोस्ट प्रोबेबली मिस प्रिंटिंग का इशू है। और कौन से क्वेश्चन है? मारूफ, योर क्वेश्चन हैज बीन आंसर्ड राइट। ईमान हैज अ क्वेश्चन, लेट्स सी ईमान। Sorry. So what if the diagram doesn't fit in the page and the page ends? Good question. If your diagram doesn't fit at the page, उसके लिए फिर आपने ये करना है कि let's say पहले तो वैसे ideally हो जाता है, इतनी बड़ी जगह आपके पास इसके अंदर, इससे बड़ा आता नहीं है. But let's say if something like that happens, you can clearly mention that you are continuing on extra sheet, and then based upon that आप यहाँ पे वो लिख देते हैं, and then at the end when you have where you have that extra sheet, you also mention that okay, this is my extra sheet and I'm starting my flow chart, and in that you need to start off your answer with one specific thinking. जहाँ पे आपने छोड़ा है आप वहाँ पे बेसिकली, आई कैन कंफर्म दिस अगेन फॉर यू टू, बट वेयर एवर यू वांट टू कंटिन्यू आप वहाँ पे एक सर्कल डाल देते हो, एंड देन ऑन द एक्स्ट्रा शीट यू अगेन स्टार्ट ऑफ फ्रॉम दैट सर्कल, दिस इज एन इंडिकेटर दैट वेयर एवर यू लेफ्ट फ्रॉम आप उसी पॉइंट से आगे कंटिन्यू करें, सो दिस इज द मेन पॉइंट, सही है। नहीं 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 नहीं, कोई नहीं कोई नहीं कोई नहीं, आई एम गोना ट्राई टू इंश्योर दिस चैट बॉक्स थिंगी इज बीइंग सॉल्व्ड इन द राइट वे, क्योंकि इसका थोड़ा सा अभी भी मुझे मसला लग रहा है, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट गेटिंग ऑल योर मैसेजेस इमीडिएटली, तो कोई इस तरह की सीन हो तो आई एम गोना सॉल्व दिस, डोंट वरी। सर फ्रॉम वेयर कैन आई एक्सेस, जो मैंने अभी आपको लिंक भेजी है वहां से आप कर लेना, सही है। ग्रुप में भी आप मैसेज कर देना, आई एम गोना ओपन अप द ग्रुप सून, सो आप वहां पे भी मांग सकते हैं, ग्रुप के बायो में जाके यू कैन एक्सेस ऑल द नोट्स एंड एवरीथिंग। क्लियर फातिमा? Alright, guys, I guess that's it for today. We sort of had a pretty good class, and I hope you all had a good learning experience and that you understood the concepts really well. Inshallah, tomorrow we will be solving the 15 marker. Uh, एक तो मैंने अपने फ़ोन को चेंज किया है, इसके अंदर अभी से मेरा डेटा ट्रांसफ़र पता नहीं पिछले कितने टाइम से लगा हुआ है, बट इट्स नॉट बीइंग कंप्लीटेड, मुझे अब गुस्सा आ रहा है, बट एवरीबॉडी दैट्स इट फॉर टुडे। वी हैव अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम शारिक, चलो शारिक का क्वेश्चन देख लेते हैं, अच्छा नहीं है, सही। ऑलराइट, सो दैट इज इट फॉर टुडे एवरीवन, टेक केयर, इंशाल्लाह सी यू गाइस टुमारो एट द सेम टाइम। अल्लाह हाफिज, बाय बाय, टाटा, सी यू।